gospel, light of the temple. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Black burial, the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One, and this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this? 65, everybody. We're up to like 65, man. That's not bad. I mean, if you caught our last episode, I mean, that's a good thing. On this show, we have it all, right, Cam? I mean, we had gangsters, ex-gangsters, pastors, preachers, athletes. In our last podcast, we had a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she was good. She pastors alongside her husband in the city of San Pedro. She had a lot of good insight, man. So that's how I always wanted the show to be. I wanted this show to be a mixed variety of people, issues, subjects, all that. So if you didn't catch episode 64 with Vanessa Briseno, check it out. Very, very good podcast. But today we have a guest, and I've been trying to get this guy for a little while. We were in communication. We know kind of the same people. So it's been good. Finally got him today. But before we get to that, make sure you subscribe, okay? Make sure you subscribe. If you guys can, go on YouTube, subscribe, Street Gospel Podcast. You see it, subscribe. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, make sure you subscribe. And if you want to support, there's always little buttons down below that you can support us, man, because podcast is not cheap to run, and we got to keep this thing going some way, somehow. So we appreciate anybody's support out there. But let's get down to the guests, because that's what we're here for, man. So I always like to play just a little music, and I thought a little West Coast.
Of course.
I mean, a little West Coast, because this guy's from the West Coast, so I had to play a little beat here. And but this guy right here, definitely from Los Angeles. He has a special project that he does alongside his son. He has a heart for the streets. He's an advocate for the homeless people. He's a speaker. He just told me today he went to school and spoke at a school, man. So this guy's all over the place. But I want to welcome to the show today, Mr. Paul Avila.
Yes, sir.
What's
Thank
up,
you,
brother?
Man. Oh, man, I'm so excited to be here. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you're here, brother.
We made it happen.
we made it happen. I mean, we talked about this the other day. I seen a piece in downtown, huge, right off the 10 freeway. And I never knew what it was, right? And so I said, man, that's huge, you know? It's like crazy. No, it's been up there for years. How many years has it been up there?
I think it's been about 6 years now.
6 years at least,
yeah,
right?
It's a good run.
Good run. Nobody touches it. And it's
yep.
unheard of, right? So one day I knew it was Trickster that did the piece. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up meeting him at 3rd Street Promenade by chance. And I was like, hey, man, you did that piece right alongside the freeway. He goes, yeah. And so that's how I kind of started knowing about your project and everything that was going on, man. But it's great to have you here, brother.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I'm excited to be here. Anytime we could share a story and bring in awareness, inspire people, man, I'm all for it. So
sure,
thanks
man.
again.
So where did you grow up, bro?
Yeah, I grew up San Gabriel Valley, not too far from here.
Yes. SGV.
The old SGV,
yep. Man, watch out, bro. Look at the Flores over there.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody talks about LA, which is pretty rough, but yeah, SGV has its little grimy parts, you know?
It does, man. I'm familiar with some of that area.
Yeah.
You know, the Ballin Park,
exactly.
El Monte area, La Puente, all in there. It's some rough neighborhoods in there.
Some hoods over there.
It's a little underrated though, right?
It is. It's okay. We'll stay off the radar. We do our dirt.
It's funny because LA is like, when you grew up in LA, there's so many sections of LA. Huge. Like you can say LA County, which San Gabriel Valley is, but if you go somewhere like outside of the state and somebody asks you where you're from, you usually say LA. Like I grew up in Southeast LA, Bell, Cudahy, and then you have downtown, South Bay. You have it's just this huge variety. Exactly. So when you say you're like kind of from LA, it's like, well, what part of LA?
Yeah, it's kind of vague. It's like narrow it down. Yeah,
it could be a lot of different
huge.
places.
LA's huge. Yeah, exactly.
How did you grow up, man? Everything was, were you all a good kid or helping the homeless back in those days?
I don't know about all that, but that might have came later on. But yeah, no, basically I was the youngest of 5, I always remember kind of being, I have 3 sisters and a brother.
Okay.
And, being the youngest, quiet one in the corner, you're kind of like the sponge. You just absorb everything. And,
right.
Paul's a little quiet guy in the corner. And I didn't, I'd say my dad and mom split, unfortunately, when I was born. So,
really?
Didn't have pops around too much. He was always in my life. It wasn't completely absent, but it was more like a weekend dad,
Okay.
And, yeah, man, just grew up in the traditional, Mexican family, go to church on Sunday. Mom makes chorizos. My mom just had our routine going. And, her thing was to keep us busy, single mom, sports, school, all that stuff. So I thank God I had my mom. She really pushed us, and she was not looking for guys and even working. She was just like focusing on the 5 kids.
Right.
So obviously we thank her to this day. We all came out halfway normal. But yeah, it's obviously being young, you got the sports and all that stuff, and I think it was around like most young guys around 8th grade you start hanging around some knuckleheads and getting a little trouble, and,
right, especially in that area.
Yeah, and my first little thing of trouble entered the graffiti world, had some fun and writing on the walls. And,
okay.
It happens, and it was like what we did. It was just your friends, and
graffiti is a good thing though, man. I've always liked, graffiti. I mean, it's even when I was younger, I was a fan of graffiti. I love graffiti everywhere you go, especially in LA. It's everywhere. And I think that's your first intrigue, right? To I don't know if we're gonna call it like the streets, right?
Yeah.
When you
entry level,
like
exactly.
You're like, oh yeah, this is cool, this is exciting. I want to put my name somewhere, and then it kind of grows on you, and it depends on if you're gonna go the graffiti route or you're gonna go like the gang route, and sometimes like both because you have no choice, right?
Exactly. So, and I think so. That was like more 8th grade, but I remember like in 6th grade, you always hear like the evolution of hip hop and that whole movement, but
sure,
like I was really there, like, well, to age myself, I'm 45, but yeah, and I think it was like 6th grade. I had a friend, Andy, and he's like, oh, my cousin gave me these records, so he didn't want them, but he gave me the records, and that was like late 80s, but it was like Fat Boys, Run DMC, Houdini, all the groups we hear of now,
right.
the pioneers, the godfathers of hip hop and stuff. So I started hearing it, and I was hearing like the scratching, and then messed up my mom's turntable, the needle, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, and then I'd go to East LA, and I had cousins. They're doing the whole breakdancing thing, and then there was where my grandpa used to live, a guy named Alex, and he was into the graffiti scene, and they had a huge wall across the street, and he's like, man, this is like our chalkboard. Like, the rivalries because somebody get crossed out. Like, he was like, whatever goes on in this wall tells you what's going around the neighborhood,
sure.
So I was like intrigued by that. I was like, really? So it was like that whole movement. It was like the breakdancing, the graffiti, the DJing, So, yeah, man, it was just that whole culture was just exploding.
I always tell everybody that was, there was no better time to grow up than like 80s, 90s, like early that era. It's like, because I think everything was new.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean, hip hop was still fairly new. There was no internet, so you had to write letters to girls, or you had to call them, which nobody does that anymore, right? Yeah. Everything was like, you get like music videos, brand new. You know what I mean? All these things were like starting to come into play.
Yeah.
But it was still like everything was fresh.
It was new.
It was this music was new. Television.
Yeah.
All the classic movies. I mean, people will argue. I mean, Cam's like old soul over here, so he'll tell you like all the classic movies, like 80s movies. He's like, nah. There's Red Dawn. There's Breakfast Club. There's all these great movies, right? So I always tell everybody like that was a great era to grow up in, even for the graffiti world.
Yeah.
That's when it started to. It was big in New York already, but that's when really it started to explode in LA, especially.
Exactly. Because we used to drive to East LA all the time, and my head would be looking right, looking left, like all the new pieces, all the names, and Hex and Skill and Chaka, all the OGs back then, and I was just totally into it. Like, it really caught my attention, and then but yeah, like you said, that whole era. I remember say somebody's coming out with a song, I got to run to Tower Records or Music Plus, Sam Goodies, get that CD.
Couldn't download it then.
Exactly. All right, one time, though, never said this, never told anybody, but I got totally chewed out. What's the worst CD that you want your parents to find in your room?
Back then?
Yes. Like a specific group.
Are you saying because it's dirty and nasty?
Exactly.
It's probably going to be Too Short or 2 Live Crew.
2 Live Crew.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something too.
Yeah, exactly.
Too Short. 2 Live Crew.
Exactly. And I didn't even really, I think I heard it one time, and even to me, I was like, oh my God, this is bad. My friend Gilbert said, dude, check it out. I think it was the cassette deck. Cassette tape. And I heard it one time, like, oh wow. And then, I don't know, I tucked it somewhere in my room. And then when I got home, my mom was holding it. She says, did you forget this? And I'm like, oh my God. It's like, hey, we want some, and I was like, you're humiliated. I'm all, that wasn't mine. Yeah, that didn't work when you try to pawn it off on somebody else.
The crazy thing, though, about that, we were talking about this the other day, me and Cam and my wife, is that those songs back then, they were awful.
Yeah.
Right? And it was like taboo. It was all over.
Exactly.
But now, like, that's like it's like tame.
It's the norm.
It's normal, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't make it any better.
Exactly.
But it's like, that's like stuff like that's almost played on the radio now.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I mean, without the curse words, of course,
Yeah.
but the innuendos and it used to be innuendos. Now it's just like straight out.
Yeah, exactly. They don't hide it no more.
No.
Yeah, and I was having a debate with my nieces and nephews because they're younger and they're like, hip hop's new to them, and I'm trying to tell them, they're like, Uncle Paul, you're old school. Blah. I'm like, back then it was just different. It was like, that was when the West Coast was popping, NWA, all that stuff, Ice-T and all them. And I was like, it was hardcore gangster rap, but I knew I wasn't going to hear it and I'm going to go shoot somebody. It was just like kind of cool. You'd vibe to it. But now it's like so sexual. And I'm like, you guys are 7th, 8th grade. You're saying these words. You don't even know what you're saying. It's so, I guess I sound like the old guy now, but I'm like, you really shouldn't hear this. And they're like,
it's hard though not to sound like the old guy now, right? I'm up there too, bro.
Exactly.
So sometimes I'm like, do I sound like the old guy now?
Yeah.
Or am I trying not to be the old guy? Like I was tripping out on I don't know if you've seen it, but George Lopez. And he was he was putting down this new comic, Ralph, right? He's putting down Ralph on and I was like, George just sounds like an old grumpy dude. Like that old cat. That's like back in my day, right? And I was like, and I hope I don't sound like that. Please don't let me sound like that. Like I want to be able to understand young people. Of course, you're gonna have to say a few things to kind of school them on a few things, but I don't want to be like, well, back in my day, it's just because then they just turn you off.
Yeah, you're like a bitter old man. It's that's how I try to really want to go in hard with this whole they're in the Drake. I just can't really get into the new stuff. So they're like, yeah, we know Uncle Paul, the 90s rap's a bit. I'm like, well, it is to me, whatever. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's
funny because guy. It's like the 90s were so long ago, dude.
Yeah,
think about
I know.
it. It's like 1990s, like 30 something years ago.
I saw somebody in there like, dude, we have our 30th high school reunion coming up in 2 years. I'm like, don't tell me that, please.
Yeah, that
sounds scary.
Time flies, bro.
It does.
Time flies. So you had a son,
yes,
right, at a very young age. Tell us about you and your girl back then. Your son's mother and how you guys got together and how that spawned pretty much changed your life.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, it was. She was, at the time, well, it was kind of the high school off and on thing, nothing real serious. And then we graduated and,
What school did you go to?
Actually, I went to, South Hills for a while, and then I went to West Covina. Okay. Kind of more in that area. And actually, I had to leave for some extracurricular activities, we'll say, but they let me back my senior year. Okay. One of those things. But like I said, people look at me now, I'm like, I had my little bad boy years, like we all did. But long story short, I was messing around. They said, you're going to have to go to this school your junior year, but if you behave, come back your senior year, you can graduate with your class you grew up with. So we made it work. But it's funny, when you're pulled out of your environment, I went to a different school, I didn't know anybody. Grade shot up, A's and B's, and I'm like, I'm not a D student. It's like you go with new people and you actually study and work, and it's like, wow, I impressed myself, But so long story short, we both graduated, and she was 18, I was 20. It was one of those things we find out, like, baby on the way. It's like, wow, you're just
super young.
Super young, super nervous, scared. The whole thing is trying to get over telling the families. Like, when you're a young couple, it's just like, I have to deal with her mom and all that. So I said, all right, well, let's do my side first. I'm going to talk to my brother, which is like basically my dad, and older brother and my mom. So we sat down, talked to him. It was the initial shock and what, and then what are they going to do? They hug you. Hey, we're here to support you. It is what it is. We love you. And so our game plan with her mom, because we were really worried about her mom would fly off the handle. And I was just like, oh my God. So I said, okay, well, let's do this together. We'll talk to her. It is what it is. The cards are going to lie as they lie, So she called me one night screaming, crying. I told my mom, get down here. I'm all, dude, this isn't how it was supposed to go down. We had a game plan. What did you? I don't know if they were arguing, and she just said, I'm pregnant anyway.
She messed up everything.
Oh, yeah.
The whole plan.
I remember going down there, man. My freaking heart was pounding. I'm like, this is not something cool to walk into. So, I walked in, mom's arms folded, steam coming out of her ears. It's kind of like, how could you do this to my daughter type of thing. So, I took a little 10-minute, some choice words by mom. I'm like, hey, I got to deal with it. I'm the man. I'm here. I'm showing my face,
Right.
So, again, like all of them, after a while, she calmed down and said, it is what it is. We're here to support you. So, I just remember just being so young. And then, beautiful boy Pauly was born, and a couple months later, and again, there was no signs. He wasn't premature. It wasn't any. All the tests were good, so we had no idea. He was literally like 3 months, and we thought everything was fine. At that point, I thought he could see. When they're babies, their eyes kind of wander and stuff like that. And I remember going to the pediatrician, and he did like the little light exam, and he just looked like he saw a ghost. Like something was wrong. He says, "Oh," and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, you better go to Children's Hospital right now. Oh. Yeah, we'll go tomorrow. But,
That's never good.
Yeah. When he said that, I heard the, what's the word I'm looking for? Just like the distress in his voice, like, you need to go now. Like, it was very important, and I'm like, oh, shoot. And I looked at her, and she's like, that doesn't sound good. And then I started looking at his eyes, and I'm like, well, I could tell they were wandering. But, when they're babies, like, they don't really, like, focus yet. Their eyes are kind of all over the place. So I thought it was something he'd grow out of or whatever. But once he said that, I heard the urgency. I was like, wow. So we called both moms at that point. We all went up to Children's Hospital downtown together. And I remember the doctors were so black. Like, it wasn't like this long, 2-hour, waiting thing. It was like 1 minute. Oh, yeah, he's blind. And I just remember it was like somebody punching me in the gut, being that 20-year-old young father. It's already a hard situation. And I remember just everybody went their own way. My mom started crying, went out the exit of the hospital. Her mom started bawling, and she went somewhere. And, his mom just had her head down crying. And I was
So you're the only guy there?
Yeah, I'm the only guy. So it's like I have to be the strong one. But, again, it's like we all took it different. It was just like somebody punched me in the gut. And I'm just, you're thinking of your son long-term. You're thinking, like, sports. Like, this whole life's flashing before your eyes. And now I'm like, this just put a stop on everything. Like, what do you mean he's blind? It's just, you can't believe it. It's a big blow, So that was tough.
Man. And so you find out he's blind. After you get over the initial shock of that, are you thinking, okay, well, we're just going to have to figure this out and work through this and love our son, of course.
Yes.
So do you get to that point finally? How long does it take you to get to that point?
Yeah, it definitely took a while. I mean, it was almost like we were both dealing with it in different ways.
Especially being young, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it's already a hard situation. Exactly. And then, dealt with that card, and you're just like, wow. So I think we kind of almost took turns. Like, I think she hit it. She was really hurting in the beginning. Obviously, as a mother, you bore this child, maybe some guilt she felt and blame. And, I would talk to her like, it is what it is. God just gave him to this way. You can't live with that. It's not your fault, my fault. Because your whole thing is like, why? Is it somebody from the family, the history, or, something wrong? And
I think the why is always the biggest question when things like that happen to us, right? We're always, when we don't have the why, like it's even rougher because we wanted, well, what's the reason? Was it because of something I did or something in our family? No. Okay, so what happened? Are we cursed? What is going on here? Like, I think when we don't have answers to stuff, it gets it makes that burden a little bit harder because we're trying to like, I don't know why. It's just the way he was born.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. You hit the nail on the head. It's just that unknown. Why you want answers now. And we talked to the doctor, and they couldn't really put their finger on it. And I think mom was more pushing like, why? And I was just kind of like, again, it is what it is at this point. We got to write it out. God gave us this baby, and we're gonna do what we have to do. And so at that point, it kind of started taking a toll on us, obviously being so young. And then I was dealing with it one way, she was dealing with it another way. And then he got older, and it was like something was still off. I'm like, I was resorting everything to Stevie Wonder because I'm like, he's the only main blind person I know. Hey, Stevie Wonder could sing, he could walk, he dance. Pauly's gonna be good. But I think now at this point, Pauly was turning like 3 or 4, and I'm like, he's still not walking, he's still not talking. Like something else is up. Like So we went to the pediatrician, and he, it was almost like deja vu again, hearing that voice. Go to Children's Hospital again. I'm like, oh my God, now what? So, but this time he said, go to the neurologist. So I'm like, okay, the brain, the neurologist. So, again, we went over there and they did some testing, and then they told us he's autistic. And it was like, wow, like that's a whole nother blow, because they said, well, normally somebody be autistic or blind, but it's very rare if they're both, because most autistic kids don't speak. And then if you're blind, obviously you can't see. So to have both of those, like, it's a very unique case, and it's going to be challenging.
Have you met another kid like Pauly?
You know what? Actually, after social media and I started sharing our journey, a lot of people come out of the woodworks, which is great. So we kind of built like a little community.
But
a little
initially,
yeah, I was on an island by yourself. Like nobody could relate. I didn't know anybody with the same circumstances.
Because I think you shared with me about the you go to blind parents meeting, right, to get some support. And it's like, yeah, no problem, we got you. And then you tell him that, well, he can't do a lot of those things, right? Didn't you
because I was really struggling. You're only strong for so long. Then you get hit with the double whammy. It's like, oh my gosh. So my family's like, you need to seek help. Go to these parent groups. So I'm gonna start with the autistic parents groups. They could relate with me. So I'd go, and again, they were like, don't worry, our kids are nonverbal as well. Just have them point to you. And I'm like, no, you guys don't get it. Pauly's blind also. They're like, oh, wow, that's a tough one. So I'm like, forget the autistic parents groups. I'm going to go to the blind parents groups. Right. Maybe they could relate more. And like I said, I went over there, and they were like, don't worry, our sons can't see, but have him tell you vocally. And I'm like, no, he's autistic. He doesn't speak. So both sides are like, wow, like, I don't know what advice to give you, because if he can't see and he can't talk, that's definitely an uphill battle.
So where do you go?
It was just hands-on learning the hard way. I mean, yeah, completely felt like I was on an island by myself. And I think that's what led to, I think Pauly was like 3 or 4. And that's when I mentally started kind of throwing in the towel, drinking, drugs, the fighting. Me and mom split now. There was like a 2-year run. I was just out of control. I was just like, F it, it is what it is. From high-speed pursuits, pulling out guns. I mean, people who know the story back then look at me like, dude, you get all the praise for Pauly's project. People don't know that 2-year run, like, that you survived that. Like, I was out of control. I was just like,
you didn't care about anything at that point. Who's watching Pauly at this time?
I mean, he was still going back and forth. I had so much anger at God. Like, why me? I go to my family parties, nieces and nephews running and playing, and Pauly be there with his head down. And it just turned into this anger and resentment. And I was just mad at everybody. Like, why am I, So I went through that, kind of poor me.
Especially being young, though, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't even deal with that now, at my age now, I'm being mature and knowing, God's going to help me and all these things. Dealing with that now, I would probably, I don't know if I'd pull out guns and get in high speed.
It got a little wild,
but I think, man, when you're young like that and don't have any support,
we have wisdom and experience. But back then,
of course, but back then, that's what I'm saying. It's like, even now, I would feel like, man, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But being young and not having any support or anywhere to go to.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize that, because like they said, well, go get help over here, go get help over there. They'll help you here. When you don't have nowhere to go, it can drive you insane. You sound like you went a little bit crazy, right?
Definitely went off the handle, and then dealing just with the relationship. I mean, dealing with Pauly, but now me and her split. She's already dating the new guy. It's a small city, so I have to run into them, fights, and so got jumped. I mean, it was a wild. I mean, the stories I was telling my friend, I forgot half of them, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot about that." When you cracked the bottle over this guy's head, and then when that one guy wanted to stab, I'm all, dude, it was like madness. Like, who is this? I was just out of control, and I think a lot of it was the alcohol, where you just, But
did you have a lot of anger? Was there a lot of anger because of this?
Oh, the whole situation. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Just the whole situation. I'm thinking I'm going to be this single father, for the rest of my life, and mom's gone. I have to deal with Pauly, and it was just a lot at one time.
But it's hands on.
Yeah, and I think for 2 years I was the strong one. Like, don't worry, we got this. And I don't know what it was. It was just, I think after maybe being her officially split, then it was just like I was just very turned into a lot of anger and resentment at everybody.
When did it change for you?
It was at that high speed pursuit. 6 cop cars after me.
Okay, how did this go down?
Oh God, you got an hour? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was. I don't even like to say the story because I just can't even believe. But it was, got crazy drunk one night. Me and her got in a huge fight. This guy tried to get involved. Then I pulled a gun. It got a little wild. He called the cops. Cops came to my apartment.
Wait.
Yeah. I kind of skipped over that.
Pauly's project guy.
Yeah.
Guns.
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
I was freaking nuts.
Okay.
And I never even shared the story because I don't like to bring it up. So this is an exclusive.
So the real SGV's coming out.
Yeah,
now.
SGV's coming out. Exactly. So before, I was like, I would never even share these things, but it's like this is part of the story, man. It is what it is, And,
it is.
I think it makes it even more, powerful and inspiring. I don't say like, oh, I had this easy, upbringing and everything's all hunky dory. It's like, no, I went through hell, for those years. And, so again, it gets too descriptive. There's too many details, but it got wild. This guy calls the cops. So as soon as I shouldn't have even got the keys in my truck, got the keys pulled out because I knew they were coming. So as I'm pulling out, I just swear it was like, cops when you're watching Virgin of Cops back in the days. So I'm flying out our apartment driveway in my truck. I shouldn't have been behind the wheel. And 6 cop cars coming in. And I'm like, Moses parting the sea. I'm exiting. They're coming in. And I just look at my rear view mirror. And it was at that point, it was on. They just all flipped, and made a U-turn, start following me. And it was like those high-speed pursuits you see. I'm looking in my mirror, and I'm like, F it. This is like kind of suicide mission. I'm going through red lights. There's 6 of them.
How old are you?
And I'm like, I was like 23 maybe. Yeah, 23.
Done.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm probably going to go out tonight. Like, it is what it is. Almost at like blackout point. Like, again, I shouldn't have been behind the wheel. And we took them all the way up to like Azusa Canyons. And then at one point they pull back because they're thinking like those are canyons at night, it's pitch black up there. This guy can't even drive straight anyways. We were going to lay back. So I'm thinking in my head, like, I got the upper hand. I lost them. They're gone. But they're thinking, you idiot, we purposely stopped, So, but I remember, I was just like, you're just barely skimming on those little side of the rails. It's already scary driving that thing sober, let alone drunk at night,
Right.
And I banged a couple of those guardrails and stuff. And I was still flying up there. And luckily, like, they have those little turnout spots.
Right.
I remember I was just gassing it. And then I was like, I think I hit one of the guardrails. And then my truck flipped, I think, like 5 or 6 times, like boom, 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 boom. And
in the canyon.
Yeah, going up the hill to the canyon. But if, I always say God saved me because I was riding that guardrail all night, going up there. And I don't know how it happened, but when I flipped my truck, it ended up just being in that little turnout. So I should have flew over,
right.
But it ended up in that little 20-foot little gap thing. So now I remember it was like a movie, and I'm pinching myself because my truck's upside down. I know there's glass shattered, there's blood. I'm upside down, all funky, and I'm like, is this a dream? Am I alive again? Because you're just after the accident, you're not all there. Plus the drinking, plus it was just too much, and I was pinching myself, like, man, am I alive, God? Am I in heaven? What's going on? I was trying to snap out of it, and I remember, when you're in the canyons at night, it's just silence.
Right.
It's like echoes up there. It's kind of creepy, and I'm like, all right, I know I'm alive now. This is all bad. My truck's upside down. I'm upside down. I'm kind of trapped. Who's going to come and help me? Like, who even knows I'm here? You're literally in the pitch black. So I remember hearing cars pull up, and then it was the sheriffs that were driving after me. So they came up like 10 minutes later. So they're probably thinking like, dude, we didn't have to do anything. This idiot crashed on his own. Like,
right.
He's already right there. But I just remember like hearing boots and them talking to each other. Like, there's no way this guy made it. Like, because my truck was totaled. It was in horrible shape. The top was all smashed. I had a little gap just to put my head to the side, and I think it flipped like 6 times. And luckily, I didn't, fly out the window or anything. But they're like, "Hey, you in there?" Blah blah. Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm alive." And they're like, "Wow, well, we're gonna help slide you out, pull you up. There's just a small gap." So, me being so out of it, like I remember they pulling me out, and then I'm kind of like, "Okay, I'm okay. I didn't break anything." Paul tries to make a run for it. I got like 2 feet. They grab me and they're like, really? Oh, I got Rodney Kingdom. Yeah. Oh, they went to town.
Where
yeah.
were you gonna run
I know. Where am I going to go? Exactly. Yeah. That's when you know you're not in your right
Pull that
mind.
Rambo and jump in the tree.
And I remember I got like 2 feet. They're like, grab the collar. Like, where are you going, boy? And they went to town.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. They had some fun on me. It's pitch black. Nobody's up there. It's just,
Old school sheriffs.
oh yeah.
Come on,
like,
man. Yeah.
I was like the piñata. So, yeah. They had some fun with me. Called the ambulance. And then ambulance took me down to the hospital. And our next morning woke up. It was like, what happened? And my family was like surrounding me. And my mom's like, what the hell? Like, is this the lifestyle you want? I think, but I always remember she said something to the effect of like, if you don't want to live for yourself, live for your son. And it was something like that guilt with Pauly. And I'm like, what am I doing? And it was something in those words. I'm like, I got to change my ways. Like, this was a waste of 2 years. You know, my son needs me and the situation is what it is, you know? So that was definitely my wake up call.
Wow, man. So what did you go to jail and all that, or what happened?
Yeah,
with that?
yeah. It was. I got lucky. Yeah, I went to jail, and it was when the jails are really overcrowded. And then my attorney ended up knowing the judge. You know, sometimes they do a little inside deal. So they talked back in the chambers, and they're like, "Hey, we should give them like, I don't know. I think it was like, because if you look at that whole night, it was like evading police, DUI."
Yeah.
There was trespassing, there was assault with a deadly. I mean,
Tried to escape.
Oh yeah, there was like 8 things, and I'm like, oh, I'm toast. So they were gonna give me, I don't know, it was like 3 to 4 years, but they did some like deal in the back. They're like, or we can just give them freaking, I don't know. It was like an incredible amount of community service, fines, all the classes, and I'm like, dude, I'll take that because I need to be out here for Pauly.
Yeah.
I can't be locked up for years. So we ended up doing that. And I remember doing my community service. They almost wanted me to be an employee. They're like, we've never had somebody do like 3 or 4 years of community. The hours was like ridiculous. Most people get like 20. It was like 2,000 hours or something.
Shoot.
So they even I had my own cart, you know, it was over at Benelli Park. I was like an employee. Like,
Really?
You know, yeah, people thought I worked there. I'm like, no, I'm just doing my hours. They're like, dude, you're here every day.
What the heck?
Yeah, so.
Did you have like a new perspective on life after that? I mean, even though it was still rough, and you had doing all that community service, did your mindset kind of change?
Yeah, it was like
begin to change.
It was slowly but surely. I think Pauly tugged on my heartstrings. You know, I just found out like how much help he needed, and I had to be around. I had to be healthy, stop drinking, and stop worried about the outside noise and, you know, friends and influence and all that. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I told his mom's like, hey, nobody else has a special needs child, blind and autistic, that of our family and friends. Nobody knows what we deal with. And,
Right.
you know, because it could be like, we're still young. Your friend, let's go to the club and blah. I'm like, dude, I got to block all that out. I got to focus. So, yeah, there was some major changes I did.
Yeah. How did you communicate with him?
Yeah, it was tough because
Because he's nonverbal, can't see. Obviously, he has some senses still, but
Yeah.
I mean, how do you communicate as a dad? Because you want to, you know, make your kids smile, even if
Sure.
they can't talk to you. You want to be able to feel them, know that. How did you communicate?
Yeah, well, I think it's just that bond you have with them. You know, I knew all those little gestures, or he'd make a facial expression, or, you know, because pretty much the only thing he would say when he got older is he would double tap his chest, so that would mean yes. So I could see when he's frustrated, would hit himself, or he'd get mad. You know, I can't imagine the frustration. You can't see and talk, and, you know, maybe he has a toothache, or maybe he went to the bathroom, or whatever. He's in diapers, and so I'd say, Paul, you want to go on a walk? Or, you know, I give him options of his favorite things. You want a snack? You want to play with your toys? You want, you know, chicken or whatever? And then he'd finally go like this. So that would mean yes. He would double tap his chest. So I'm like, hey, at least all he could do
So
is
he
say
can
yes.
comprehend a
But
little-
that's the universal language. Yeah.
Right.
So he would comprehend that, you know. You know, now as he gotten older, I know all the little signs, you know, I'm on top of it. So it's, yeah, I mean, there's no verbal, you know, communication, but, you know, just that connection with being him. I know all his needs and wants. He's all very routine oriented.
How rare is that? It's got to be some sort of stat or something like that. Because even a lot of autistic kids are still able to communicate and are verbal.
Yeah.
But blind and nonverbal autistic.
Yeah. No,
kind of-
it's tough. I think I started my Instagram page in like 2014, and then I had other parents reach out, and they're like, thank you for putting Pauly in the forefront. Like, there was a couple from Miami, and then there was a mom in Texas. There's another lady in Arizona. Like, people are reaching out, like, our sons are blind and autistic. And again, there's not like a huge community of it. They're out there, but everybody's just kind of, you know. So I think it was cool that I put out in the forefront. They were like, man, thank you for, you know, putting Pauly as the example, because there are families like that. So it wasn't as rare as I thought. I mean, it is, but I'm glad I was able to build a little network. And to this day, I talked to a lot of the parents, and a lot of them were younger than me. So I was like, man, I wish I had a Paul out there that I can see them from experience. And, you know, because again, they don't come with a manual. You just learn hands-on. And I think, you know, I kind of talked about his childhood, but the hardest years was when he turned from like 16 to 22. That's when he started getting very aggressive and violent. So he'd punch me, bite me, kick me. And I think his hormones are raging, testosterone.
Right.
Now he's becoming a man.
Yeah.
And he was really hard to control, you know. So he'd be sitting there, and then he would just snap. Like, he would flip this table. People would come in my house. There's like glass and blood, and like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, Pauly had a horrible meltdown. We had to call 911 a couple times, but his head is his weapon. So, you know, if he can reach something, he can't see, but he would put his head through the drywall. It looks like at our old house, like we had a bowling ball. You put it through the wall. There's like perfect circles of Pauly's head, you know, so we had to put padding everywhere. So it was rough. I thought that period was never going to end. I mean, sometimes he'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning, just socking himself in the temple, you know, and it's like hard as a parent to see that, because I don't know what he's going through. We can't talk. And I'm like, Pauly, I'm sorry. What can I do? And it was just, I had like PTSD, you know, like waking up. I sat in a recliner for like 3 years next to his bed, and I was just ready at all given time. So he'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning, maybe have a meltdown. Sometimes he slept, sometimes he didn't. It was rough, man. It was rough.
Man, I couldn't imagine having to give that much care, man. Mm-hmm. Where do you get the strength to do that?
Yeah, man. I think
just pure love.
Yeah, all the above, love and the family support, and, you know, a lot of prayer. You know, I believe God gives me the strength. You know, you always hear that, you know, saying, and I got tired of hearing, because everybody would tell, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's true. Like, you know, obviously, you know, and then we haven't even touched on Pauly's project. I'll get into how that evolved, but I think Pauly's given me this, you know, compassion and patience to help people. You know, I change his diapers, I feed him, I bathe him, cut his nails. You know, everything you do for yourself for self-care, I have to do for him. Put his deodorant, you know, shave him, you know. So I hear people complaining. I'm like, really, man? Like, you have no idea. I don't have the latest iPhone. I'm like, dude, that's your worry of the day? You know, come to my house. I'll show you, you know. Right. But I don't complain. You just do what you got to do. And I can really, like with my Instagram page, you know, I have a little following. And I think people like that I do our posts more as inspiration and to bring awareness, not to the pity party and look at us and victimize us. It's like, this is our situation, but look how we're handling it.
Right.
You know?
I think that's the biggest thing when I see your page is it is inspirational, because I think, you know, even after talking to you before this podcast, it was kind of like, man, I think of that stuff, and I'm like, okay, you know, I don't look at your page as like, feel sorry for me, but I look at it like inspirational, like you said, and I'm glad you said that, because that I'm like, okay, what am I complaining about over here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This dad has joy, and he's doing something with his son, you know, that can't give him really any real reaction or words or say, hey, you know, anything, and he still pushed forward. So I think when I look at your page, I'm just like, this is really inspirational, man. This is something that we all can learn from. Mm-hmm. And I think I guess the blessing for you would be now being able to inspire people. Yeah. Through unfortunately your hardship.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what people tend to forget. I think about, you know, nothing in comparison, but I think about when my dad died, and I used to say why, and then you wouldn't believe how many guys I've helped with the death of their father, and I think, well, my tragedy is still a tragedy, and it's tough and it's hard to, you know, think about sometimes, but being able to help other people and be there for them and encourage them. Maybe even if I don't have the right words, I could just listen.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and your hardship, all the things you went through with Pauly, and now being able to inspire people and like these families that say thank you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because now I have somebody that I can go to.
Exactly.
I think that always seems to like kind of like mend the pain a little bit.
Yeah.
Like mend the hurt a little bit. Like, okay, I'm able I went through it, but I'm able to inspire these other people, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. No, I think just changed my whole perspective with life. I think with all the wisdom experience with age, I look at things in a different perspective. But back then it was more anger and victimizing myself and looking up in the sky. God, why? And now that I'm older, I'm like, all right, I get it, God. Like I'm the chosen one. You knew I can handle this, and you knew I was going to be an example and inspire others, And I think even thinking of being a father, because that's a huge thing for me. It's, since my dad wasn't really around too much, I always had that hole in my heart. Like he never showed up to the games and all that stuff. And it was like, you can easily fall in that cycle. Sometimes I call it BS. Well, my dad wasn't around, so I'm like, dude, really? We can all do that. But,
right.
Or you can step up and be a man. It's like, hey, I'm the easiest one who could bail on this thing. I'm not with baby's mama anymore. I had to deal with Pauly, but, a man steps up and you do what you got to do. So it's like, I don't want Pauly to have that same hole in his heart that I did. And he needs me even more so because all the care he needs,
I love that, man, because I think what you said there is a lot of people fall into the victimhood mentality sometimes, man, and it's very easy. It's very easy. We're everybody's a victim nowadays, right? And I think sometimes we don't realize that life can be rough and life can be a struggle. People, get cancer and die, or their wives get breast cancer, or their kids, something happens to them, or you have special needs family members and things like that. And I think sometimes it's very easy. I'm not knocking nobody that becomes that gives up, because I don't know everybody's situation.
Yeah, but different backstory.
but it is rough. But I think you kind of taking, the helm of that and just saying, hey man, it wasn't easy and you had to go through some rough patches, but now being able to be blessed and say, like, man, this is God gave me this task and now I'm going to run with it. I wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Elevate Ministries. Elevate Ministries is an authentic, passionate, and innovative church in the heart of Orange County, California. They strive to make their services welcoming and encouraging by intentionally engaging you in all senses to stimulate a spiritual hunger. If you're looking for a great church that's on a mission to change the world one person at a time, I encourage you to check them out at www.elevateministries.com and on Instagram at Elevate Ministries. My friend Matt said something. His son was born with a special needs son and didn't have, his hands are not fully developed. His arms are a little bit shorter and kind of bent. And he said, the biggest tragedy of my life, or the biggest hurt that came upon my life, was my son. But it ended up being the biggest blessing.
Yeah,
down the road. It was in the beginning, it's like, man, I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know what's going to happen. Crying and all this stuff. And it's very difficult. But now we look at it and we're like, man, this has been one of the biggest blessings of my life. Like you said, the same thing that you said, God chose me to do something with this. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I look at Pauly, he's such a huge inspiration to me. It's like, who am I to complain and whine? And this young man can't see and talk, and he has a tough life ahead of him. We're doing the best we can. So when I get down, I look at him, I'm like, man, who am I to complain? You know what I mean? Right. I got to step it up. But now he just gives me that encouragement, and we feed off of each other. I mean, he needs me just as much as I need him. And it's like God just bonded us perfectly together. He knew what he was doing, because I know most of my friends come over. They're like, dude, no offense, but I couldn't handle it. It's like, I'm out, because they'll come and I'm not really paying attention to them. I'll be there, watching the game. I'll be there in a little bit. And they're like, you missed the game already? Because I'm like, well, yeah, Pauly got upset. I got to give him a shower because water calms him, or he wants to go on a walk, or give him his favorite snack or music, or I got to cut his nail. Every little detail. And they're just like, wow, I'm tired just watching, and I'm like, dude, this is just one day in the life of, Right. There's a lot of sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
A lot of things that you have to surrender to. Are you the full-time caregiver for him?
No, he goes back and forth with me and mom. He's with mom tonight. So, props to mom and stepdad, and they have, son and daughter, and, that's why, I don't really share and post my situation, but I would say Pauly gets the best of both worlds. So we still get both a little breather, where good. He goes back and forth quite a bit during the week. And, that's been his routine since he's little. So he doesn't know anything different than that. But, sometimes mentally you need that to take a little break and, just to get your head straight, at least for 24 hours, Right.
So let's transition here. We're going to transition from Project Paul.
Yeah. Pauly's project.
To Pauly's project.
There we go.
Right?
Exactly.
So projects, that you're Project Paul.
That's true.
But let's transition to Pauly's project. Tell me a little bit of how this came about.
Yeah. So basically, I know that was I feel like that was a whole earful with that first half, and now we haven't even touched on the second part.
Everybody likes the background.
Yeah, true.
Right. Everybody likes to how did it lead up to, and I always say like the overcoming part's like the best part of the story.
Yeah,
because everybody sees you doing Pauly's project now, but nobody really saw Project Paul.
Yeah,
and how you
train wreck Paul.
how you evolved.
Yeah.
And how, because I think that's important, because I think everybody always sees a finished project or
like
sees
the cherry on the top, the good part. Well, I think I never
tip
shared
of the iceberg,
this,
but never shows the bottom of all the work underneath the water, right?
Exactly.
So I think how did this come about?
Yeah. No, and just to piggyback off on that, like, this is really some exclusive stuff. I feel like more open with you because I'll share the Pauly's project stuff, and I've always shied away from like my past because it got a little grimy for a while, but it's making me feel good talking about it and leading up to it because it just puts the pieces of the puzzle together.
I think so.
It makes you appreciate Pauly's project so much more. And I like, they just started this thing. It's like, man, you have no idea the backstory, what I just went through, explained.
Yeah, because I think when you told me about your son, because he's 25.
Yeah, he'll be 26 in April.
Be 26 in April. And I think when you were talking about him, and when I see the piece in downtown and all this stuff, and I think, he's a teenager. I don't realize I didn't realize he was a grown man until you told me, and then I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
So it's been
a
long time.
It's been a long road.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, a lot of battles. Like I said, that 18 to 22, those are rough. And like I said, he's gonna be 26. I feel like we've overcome so much. But to start the Pauly's project thing, I mean, like I said, music was our lifesaver with Pauly. We used to put the headphones on. I think it was like 3 or 4, and he'd rock back and forth. We'd call him the little Stevie Wonder. And I'm like, all right, well, hearing is his main thing, so we know music is going to soothe and calm him during life. So that was like a key factor.
Was there any particular music?
Well, it's funny because I always loved oldies, and I'm like, at least it's mellow, we play some hip hop, nothing too crazy, or classic rock.
No 2 Live Crew.
Yeah, no more 2 Live Crew. Exactly. Yeah, we'll put that on the shelf.
Thank God Pauly didn't like 2 Live Crew.
Exactly. He might have if I had introduced. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I was like, we'll keep it calm with the oldies. He does a lot of the Motown, all the Soul Town stuff. Stevie, well, of course, Stevie Wonder, he loves that. The Marvin Gaye and all that. Excuse me. But, so long story short, just to back up a hair getting into Pauly's project, because this is what led up to, I think, the inspiration as well as Pauly. But I had an uncle, hardcore gangbanger, East LA, and his lifestyle, it was pretty dangerous. I'll just say that, but it was always in and out of prison. He'd go to prison, do some years, get released, he'd go to Skid Row. Do some dirt, go to prison, get released, it was just a cycle. So I think I was like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom would always take me down there. She's like, at the end of the day, we love your uncle, we got to do what we got to do to help him, but he was always like kind of kept us arm's distance. He says, hey, don't get too close to my lifestyle, but I appreciate you guys helping. So we would go down there, bring him cigarette cartons and hand out the window, and we go to Skid Row and give him clothes and hygiene items. So I think that played like a crucial role, planted the seed, because I always remember looking out the back of the car and I was scared, like, where are all these homeless people? And my uncle would roll up to our window and we'd hand him stuff. So
you kind of develop a heart for people, or seeing how they were just out there and they needed help.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, I was so young, but can't really do anything at the time. You're just like taking it, observing and taking it in as like kind of like a sponge, looking out the windows.
Right.
And it was scary and stuff. So fast forward, uncle passes away, and then now I'm like in my late maybe 20s, and dealing with the Pauly situation. Things are better, things are smoothing out, and I'm like, I think my passion, I love to go back to Skid Row because that's where my heart is, in honor of my uncle. And I'm going to just start simple, serving breakfast at the Midnight Mission. So I didn't tell anybody, I didn't make a big deal. I just said, I'm going to go at 6 a.m., serve breakfast. And man, it made me feel really good. It was just like, I think that connection with my uncle, just being in that environment, I was like, man, these were his streets he used to walk on. So I remember walking back to my car one day, and I saw this guy with headphones, and he was doing like the little Stevie Wonder, like he was rocking back and forth, big old Colgate smile, and like literally stopped me in my tracks. Like the light bulb went off, or the God-inspired moment. I was like, wow, like that dude has the same smile as Pauly. Like music's the universal language. Like I don't care if you're homeless in a tent or you're blind and autistic like Pauly. Like music just touches the soul, and nobody knows more than me because again, we live with Pauly, and music's our lifesaver. So I remember I went home that night and I was tossing and turning. It's like, all right, God, you put something in my heart. How do I connect, the homeless, my passion of helping them, and Pauly and music? And I said, I'm going to start something called Pauly's Project. and we're going to share the gift of music, and we're going to donate radios to the homeless. That was a simple concept, and we're going to do it in honor of my son. At the time, still not bitter anger. I kind of got over that, but I was like, there's certain things I can't do with Pauly. He's not going to go to prom. He's not going to get married. He's not going to be playing sports. There's certain things that we can't do, but this is what I can do for my son. Like, this is how I'm going to put him on the map. Like, this is going to be the inspiration behind this whole movement. Yeah. So I said, I know, music brings him so much joy. We want to bring joy to the streets, So Pauly would go down there with me. I think my initial thing was just buy 50 radios. Buy 50 radios. We might be done, or maybe we'll buy a few more. So I told my family and friends, I need $5, $10. So we bought these 50 radios. Pauly would go down to the streets, and he's still young. I think, I don't know how old he was at the time. 14, 15, something like that. And Pauly would hand him the radio, and I thought they'd be more excited with the radio. They were more intrigued with Pauly because they're like, they didn't really know his condition. They're like, why isn't he looking? I'm like, oh, he's blind. Or why isn't he talking? I'm like, well, he's autistic. He doesn't speak. And Pauly would hand him the radio, and they would just have like this dumbfounded look, like, who am I to complain? This young angel is giving me a free radio. He can't see and talk, and I'm here in my tent. Like, so it kind of flipped the script on them, and they were just like speechless,
That's a wild scene if you think about it, because I think, you think a homeless person is going to be like the lowest of the low, and for them to be able to say like, hey man, I have nothing to complain about. Yeah. I can see, I can talk, I can walk down the street, nobody, and do pretty much live free and don't need anybody to take care of me. But here's a kid that needs everything, and they're getting a gift from him. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I would say God bless when we walk away, and I look back, and they're like speechless, like, what just happened? I think it made them reevaluate their life. And again, a lot of them said, hey, yeah, I live in this tent, but I can still get up and do something with my life. Like, this young man can't see and talk, and, it just really touched their heart. So that was like the first 2 years I took Pauly to the streets, and, man, they loved him out there. Every time I go, where's Pauly? Like, he just built this little, community out there that loved him. But then I could see after year 3, he started getting a little bit older, and he was irritated by it. I think it was the smells. As he's getting more mature and older, bigger, and I'm like, why am I going to drag him down here anymore? I could see he's moody, because it's overwhelming. Like, even for us, we can see in Skid Row, it's like fights going on, people screaming, the smells, the smoke, I'm like, I don't want to torture this kid. So I said, Pauly, you could stay back, so his mom would watch him, and I would still continue to go on the weekends. So I think I put the next 2-3 years in work by myself. Like, I would go in the mornings or at nights. And my family would get mad, like, why are you going to Skid Row at night by yourself? Like, this is not safe, And I'm like, man, if I want to dive into helping the homelessness and connecting with them, like, I want to be in the thick of it, So it took a while, to get respect out there because, let's face it, some areas are more, Hispanic, some are black. So some of the back streets, it was predominantly black. And they're like, okay, no offense, but you're a Mexican dude down here at midnight by yourself. Like, do you have a death wish? This isn't normal, Wow. And I said, honestly, man, if I want to build relationships and connect with you guys, I want to see how could I be of service? How can I help? So it took like a good solid year to build that trust with them. And they're like, all right, man, you're the real deal. So there's always like a main guy on each block. And they kind of took me in and shook my hand and say, man, we respect what you do. Like, you're not out here for the clout, the photo op. Like, you're out here weekly and by yourself. And we appreciate
because this is before the gram. This is before the clout, right? Yeah. Not that you're searching for that, but there's nobody going to say, hey, great job.
Yeah.
All you're going out there is because you
genuinely care,
sincerely care. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I mean, it's a thing now. I don't know their heart. Maybe they have a right heart, but people like to video everything, right? Here's $2 I'm giving to this homeless guy. Look at it. Everybody on the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yay. It's a big thing.
The pat on the back.
But to do something with nobody looking, just pure heart, I'm just going to do it. I mean, that takes a lot, bro. That takes a lot. I mean, props to you, man.
Yeah. No, I think just having, like I said, all the stuff I was dealing with Pauly, so people would pat me on the back, like, how do you do it? Go out there by yourself and you're giving and you're so nice. And I'm like, it's really not anything different than I'm doing in my house. Like, I clean my son's butt. I change him, my wipe on my, feet. I do everything. So when I go out there, it's like, I'm just kind-hearted as it is. And I think Pauly's prepared me for this work because it's not for everybody. It could be, dangerous. It'd be scary. You get anxiety out there. But, I think all the stuff I do with my son, it's helped me to go out there and it's just opened my heart, because Pauly has me. If not, he might be thrown in a home somewhere. A lot of these people, they say they have nobody. Pauly's Project is their family, So I think when I was down, when I was in the hospital on my back and I looked up and my family was surrounding me, Paul, get up. These people have nobody. We're it. So I think it's it's hard, man. It's deep. There's a deep connection in the streets.
What keeps you motivated?
Honestly, I think my son, in the beginning, it was more, what I was getting out of it. But now we've had thousands of volunteers over the years, and I like seeing what they're getting out of it, So you're kind of like the dad. You step back and, oh, my young kid, like, I'm happy, I'm proud of you. And we've had so many people start their own organizations off of us, and people just have so much passion, and it's cool. Like, you're just building this positive movement,
What's the biggest misconception about homeless people?
There's a lot. I think everybody puts them in a bubble. Like, homelessness has such a negative stigma. And, I said, man, imagine going out there every weekend for 10 years. Like, if I were to start stereotyping and judging, I'd be gone years ago. But, I think it's just building that relationship. And people are always scared, the typical, they're drug addicts or psychos or crackheads or, you can't say that. A lot of these people are just down on their luck, all different backstories and situations. I look at myself, all the crap I went through. So who am I to throw a stone, But they always say the hardest part of homelessness is loneliness. So, like, there's a guy, Steve, he lives off the freeway, and he's all thousands of cars pass by me, and I'll just wave. Nobody really gives a damn. Nobody waves back. No, I'm, like, invisible. And you guys come, on Sundays, shake my hand. Steve, how you doing? How was your days? You're acknowledging me like I'm a human. Nobody even calls me by name, So those little things that we take for granted, like, other people are praying for just to have dialogue with another human being, So, ours is a little different. We go out the first and third Sunday of every month. And I did Skid Row in the beginning all those years, and sometimes we would post up on a corner, and and Skid Row, it's a lot of people, so people would come up, you're handing them food and this and that, which is great. But Skid Row is like the mecca. All the groups go down there because that's where it's predominantly all the people. So I remember one day I got lost, and I hit like a back street, and I was like, man, there's so many encampments, what I call like the outskirts of downtown LA, all these little pockets. And remember getting out one time and like, who comes out here? Does anybody help you or bring food? And people are like, no, we're like the lost out here. We're like, the lone survivors.
The lost.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, we don't even want to go into Skid Row because it's pretty dangerous. So we stay on the outskirts, under the freeways and some back alleys. And, it's pretty hardcore out there too. But right. I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be my niche. Like, I'm going to come and help you guys and stuff like that. So I started posting stuff. And I remember one day people were like, we love what you do, but how do we get involved? And I'm like, that's true. I can't just keep it about myself. Like, so I said, all right, well, if anybody wants to volunteer, we're going to meet here at Farmer Boys at 10:30. And then, it started 2 volunteers and 4 and 10 and 5, it just built up. But yeah, that's what we do, man. We go out there.
I mean, because everybody, I look at that too, and I know drugs is a big issue in a lot of people's life, but I think sometimes we forget that homelessness is only a few tragedies. You're only a few tragedies away from
like a paycheck
from being homeless. Like I think like there's people, and you hear these stories. The husband, the sole provider for a wife and maybe a couple kids, dies unexpectedly, and maybe the wife doesn't have no family, and loses an apartment or a home, and then she can't find a job because her kids are too small. She can't afford childcare, and then you're homeless. You don't have nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so close for a lot of people, especially now with the economy, with everything. Mm-hmm. Like being homeless is only one tragedy away, right?
Yeah, it's not that far fetched. When I'm out there, I just think years ago, people think of, it's an old guy pushing a shopping cart. Not anymore. It's youngsters. It's families. Like, we see so much now, especially after the pandemic. Like you said, double income, and mom loses her job. Well, now they lost the apartment. They're out in the streets. They're living in the car. So it's sad. There's a lot of people. I mean, LA County has 70,000 homeless. So, people are like, oh, they're losers. They don't want help. And, I'm like, dude, how could you even say that? I said, the first thing is they should go to a shelter. Well, do the math. If every shelter bed opened up, there's only like 18,000 beds in LA County. There's 70,000 homeless. So that big gap, where do you want people to go? So I just say, hey, we've had a lot of success stories getting people in housing and stuff like that. But the other half, let's face it, they might die out there. It is what it is. Some people don't want help, as we know. Others do. But, I go in and treat everybody the same. And, we've helped a lot of people. So I just don't stereotype. I have a big heart to help people.
Yeah, I think you do as much as you can, right? Mm-hmm. If they want to be helped, you help them. If they need some toiletries, okay, fine. But
sure.
People want to be out there, and that's been their life for years, you know, and they don't want anybody to help them. I mean, the shelters, like you said, I think are good. There's rules to shelters too, right? I mean, you said it's 18,000 beds, but sometimes there's only X amount of beds for men or no beds for men, right? There's some rules on that.
Well, a lot of times, like if it's like dangling the carrot. If I dangle a key and say, hey, I can get in a shelter tomorrow, probably less than half would say, okay, let's go, get me the hell out of here, send me there. And the other half are like, man, I don't want to have all the rules on my back. Then I can't drink in there, and then if I have a dog, they won't let me bring in my dog, and won't let me bring in my supplies or whatever, and then you have to be in it at a certain time. Like, I'd rather live out here in the community. I've known these people on this block for 10 years, and it is what it is. I'll probably die out here, and I'm cool. Like, this is the decision I'm making. So, again, it's hard, man. Everybody has different backstories, but you do see, like, say I'll see somebody who just became homeless out there. They're out there a week, certain mindset. They're scared. They're nervous. You see them 2 months later, they could be an alcoholic now, or they're on drugs. Because a lot of people in their right mind, like, man, you can't survive out there. You got to numb yourself with something. So I get it, man. It's survival of the fittest, and especially if you're a woman, 90 times percent they're raped. It's just they go through a lot, and it's tough, man. But we have, like, even the psychology behind it. We just got my friend Mama Rose. We just got her into housing. And she's been in the streets for 6 years and lived along the freeway. So when I went to go visit her, she has a beautiful room now. And she just came in carrying all her stuff. I'm like, where were you? She's like, oh, I went back to my tent. I'm like, Mama Rose, you have a beautiful room here. What are you doing? She's like, it's just too quiet, and I'm scared by myself in this little box, where out there all my friends would protect me in the streets, and I'm in my tent, and I like the noise, and my people would watch over me. I was like, man, that's deep. Like, there's a psychology behind it. It's almost like somebody's done prison. They're in their little cell, and you can't just say throw them back in society. Like,
right.
It's
they'll do a crime just to go back to prison.
So it's interesting.
What can we do as people, like, to help your project? What can we do?
I mean, definitely, we're always open to volunteers, but really donations. I see as Pauly's project is growing, we're serving more people. We were just out this Sunday. Well, we came across 150 people, but it adds up. So that's 150 meals, 150 hygiene kits, 150 drinks, 150 socks, so we get, a little funding here and there, $100, $200, but I'm starting that Patreon campaign where people just go and, like, okay, here's, you always say, don't drink Starbucks for one day and donate it to Pauly's project, but we need that consistent, monetary donation. So, somebody gets $10 here, $20, it adds up, so if I knew, like, hey, we have a couple thousand in the kitty every month and we know what we can buy, but that's been the hardest part. But it's like, as Pauly's project is growing, we have a lot of support out there, but, I always tell people, we could all talk the talk, but, we need action. So we definitely need the community support. So monetary donations, volunteering, or we have events they can come out. Like, there's so many ways to help Pauly's project.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. With homelessness, do you think that you can legislate or city-run programs are going to help? Or is it the private people like yourself, that are in the streets, that are that are helping? Do you think they have a better chance of making a difference on homelessness in the streets than the city? That you have all these city programs. So you always hear all the city programs. But I feel like it can't be government run. It has to be run by like people like yourself that really know the street and really know what works and doesn't work. Because these city programs seem like they're just maybe they're well intentioned, but they don't understand or know how to deal with people. Yeah, no, I think that's the most frustrating part. Seeing all these measures and Prop H, all this stuff, 300 million to the horn, 400 million, and then I'm sitting back 3 or 4 years later, like, where'd that money go? What happened? Where did it go? And people ask me, Paul, you're on the front lines. If anybody knows you see it. Right. What's the difference you see with all that money passing? I'm like, I see more homeless out here. I don't know where it went. They said, oh, we're going to build, thousands of these rooms and stuff. And they ended up doing like 30 rooms or, whatever it was. It was just some BS. But I think it's because the city, city officials have the money and then there's us. So it's like, we got to come together because I know they say, oh, we're trying to get these people in shelters. And you could see the people from the city with the yellow vest with the clipboard. And they're going up to my friends. And my friends are like, man, I don't trust you. I'm not giving you my information. Right. But I knew if I asked them, they'd be like, shoot, Paul knows me for 10 years. Here's my social here, So they need people like me because I've built the relationships on the ground. So you can't just have people from the city show up and say, hey, we're going to help you, So I think it's going to be a collaborative effort, but it's all about like
drug rehab, the mental, there's so much stuff that comes with it. But again, it's almost, I always refer to it like somebody who did 30 years, doing time,
Yeah,
and
it's
then they
hard to
come
go
out.
back.
You can't just throw them in society, say, figure it out yourself. They need the follow-up and the help. But the city's dropped the ball. I mean, they should have attacked this years ago. Now it's like spiraled out of control. People are like, you think
it's
homelessness
bad.
is going to go away? I'm like, it's never going to go away. They'll put a little dent in it, but it's going to take a lot of moving pieces, and it's just frustrating. So by the time I look at politics and this and that, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to stay in my lane and do what I do and help as many people as I can.
Right. I think that's the biggest thing to me. I mean, we get so many organizations that are dedicated. It's not just a 2-year, 3-year run. For you, you're going on over 10 years of running this. And I think that when you start getting into the politics of it, it just it gets wild. I mean, to me, it's just like, give these organizations the capital they need to make a dent. Whether it's Pauly's project, whoever out there that's doing it. Our friend Jacob, his stuff going on too. It just give them the funds and let them distribute it out, and at least where it's going to. It's going to something. It's being used the right way. It's not just being used to look good for the political realm, or money's being spent on stuff that's irrelevant. It's not even making a dent. I mean, because there's a lot of money being spent out there.
There's hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's crazy. It's like we're one of the few that are on the front lines actually doing it. I mean, the proof is there. You go on Instagram, we're out there every week grinding, and it's like we're the one that are lacking the most resources. Like, I'm glad we've gotten this far just with what we've had. But lately we've gotten a couple more sponsors, and I like their answer where they're just like, man, we like to see what's going direct in somebody's hand. Sometimes you deal with these big old third party, huge nonprofit organizations. Is like, I hope my donation went somewhere, but but they're like, at least we know when it's going to Pauly's project. Like, we can see it, like we know, it's going to a good cause. So
what are some of the success stories that you've seen through your project?
One of them was my friend Sophia. She was, I'm not speaking down on her because she would say this herself if I was here, but she lived a horrible life, drug dealing. She was a prostitute. You name it, she's been through it, living in the streets for I think it was 25 years. She's like, I was just a bad girl. Like, I did everything and anything. One of the times she was, working the streets, doing her thing. And I think it was somebody either took her money or didn't pay her. And she was so high on drugs. She said, I got so pissed off. It was kind of like a Paul night when you're like, F it, this is it. I'm going to end it, And she got a thing of gasoline and she threw it on the guy. And she threw a match on him, ready to blow him up. And her arm was filled with gasoline when she threw it. Ooh. So she ended up lighting herself on fire. And I think it was 80% of her body burned. So she was away for 8 months in a burn center. I didn't really know the story. It was just she vanished. So I assumed half the people, she must have passed away, rest in peace. And I saw her another year after that. And first of all, I saw her in the streets and she was there visiting friends. I didn't recognize her. And she's all, Paul, I'm like, man, you look familiar. And she's like, it's Sophia. You knew me for 5 years. I'm all, Sophia. I mean, she just had this glow. She looked normal. I mean, she had her burn marks and stuff, but she's all, because of Pauly's project, it wasn't just because of us, but she said, I remember those Sundays when I was so down on my luck and depressed, and you guys always came with a smile. You never judged me. You always uplifted me. You said, you're going to get out of here, Sophia, one day. Well, it took that catching myself on fire and surviving that to make the changes. So she's all, the people in the hospital were so nice, these nurses. I said, if I make it out alive, I want to be in the medical field so I can help people what she went through. So long story short, she's working at USC Medical Center.
Wow.
She has a car now. She got married. She has a house.
Awesome.
And she's the major comeback story. So, but she just hugged me and she's like, thank you. When I was at my lowest point, I knew I had my Pauly's Project family, and you guys just helped me so much through those rough times.
It's got to be inspiring for you to see that.
Yeah.
And just to know that you made an impact on this woman's life and transformed her around.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and there's a lot of stories like that, and I think that's what keeps me going. Because I could look at the negative, so-and-so, and it's a lot when I go out there, so-and-so overdosed, so-and-so got stabbed, so-and-so died of cancer, it's like people aren't getting the help they deserve. But then there's stories like Sophia, okay, Paul, keep doing it. You are touching lives out there, and you're making a difference, and, sometimes I hate leaving them out because I got to give a shout out to my Pauly's Project team. The volunteers, they're amazing. It's like me and Pauly, I always say we're the face of Pauly's Project, but we can't do it without our volunteers. And we have such a loyal core group. There's maybe 20 that do so much behind the scenes, organizing clothes. We have a warehouse, so they're putting hygiene kits together and just all the countless hours you know, and
Right.
it's amazing. And it's a whole team, Pauly's Project Army that keeps this thing moving.
That's so good, man. I think the biggest thing for me with you is and why I liked Pauly's project and what you guys got. I think you're truly living it. There's a lot of organizations out there where I think it's all about the shine.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for somebody like yourself that said, you know, I was here before Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm going to be here when the next whatever Instagram starts up.
Yeah.
We're still going to keep going. But I think you've made it about your son and the people in the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even know how you looked.
Yeah.
Because you don't post yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's big because I think people like to give to that. You know what I mean? I know I like to give to that because I'm like thinking this guy's about it. He's really getting out. And that's not to knock anybody else out there. But I'm saying I think people realize like you're committed. And I think when people are committed to something, people respect that.
Yes.
And I think that's what you got going on right now, man. I think
Yeah.
that you kind of set the tone for other people to come along and say, okay, I want to try to do this and make an impact. And impact is not made for a year or two or a couple posts. I mean, it's made over a long period of time, and I think you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, the longevity. You know, even we were at this last event, To Live and Die in LA, and you know, a lot of people came up to our booth. We're selling merch, but it's more, you know, telling them, sharing about Pauly's project or how people can get on board volunteering and donating. But I don't know how many times they're like, I'm about to say, oh, it's started by my blank. They're like, dude, save it. I already follow you. We already know your story. I was like, I think we have more of a, you know, people that we touch out there than I think of, you know.
Right.
And it was amazing. Yeah. People are like, no, man, we love your project. We've been following you for years. And thank you for what you do in the community. And I'm just like, wow, this is cool. Positive feedback. You know, it's like, I'm glad we're inspiring others. And, you know, there's a lot of respect for Pauly's project out there.
Right. What are the goals set forth for the future, man? I mean, I'm sure having a son that you have to take care of 24/7, you just live day to day in that sense, right? Like, you know, I can't think about tomorrow. We're just going to live through today and get through today.
Yeah, that's always been my motto. Like one day at a time. And people are like, "Where do you want Pauly's project to go?" And I'm like, I kind of do as much, you know, physically as I can. Like I do a lot for Pauly's project, even under my circumstances. But yeah, it's like I know we're definitely going to expand. Like we have one cargo van, we need two. We have one warehouse, we're going to need a second warehouse. Like I want to expand to different areas of LA, like not just focus on one area. So I mean, right now we are trying to get like grants from the city and stuff. So I think we've been on the back burner. We've been doing this 10 years. And then I see new organizations come out. Oh, they've got a $50,000 grant, 70. I'm all, dude, they're come out once every 6 months for the photo op. Like we need to be tapping into that money, and not in a selfish way. Like we really need, you know, we're out there doing it. So it's like, you know, you got to start taking care of some business now. And it's exciting, this growth. You know, I feel like we're rounding the corner, you know, getting our name out there. We're getting, you know, my sister's kind of taken on as my secretary now, because it's like I'm overwhelmed with stuff. Like, okay, you're going to speak here, and then you got to pick up a donation here, and then you're going to talk to the school, and then Coca-Cola wants this, you know, like we're making moves, but it's overwhelming for one person, you know. Yeah.
You ran that forever, right?
Yeah. So it is hard to step back too. I've had people, you know, we'll take over your Instagram page, and we're going to take over, just you do your networking, do your thing. And I'm like, I know, but it's still my baby. Like Pauly's project, I've held it so long, but I got to delegate and step back a little bit, you know, and, like I said, I have good people around me, and they want the best interest of Pauly's project. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming out, man.
Oh man, thank you. It was amazing. Good time. It was just good flow. Just like we're having a conversation. It's the best way.
That's what I tell everybody. Just come in here, man. We'll have a good time, and we'll talk. And it's really great to meet you, man, and really good to learn about Pauly and your guys' life, man. It's very inspiring for me, man. I think you know, when you talked about you know, just helping people where they're at. I think as you know, this is faith-based. I'm a Christian, and you know, I always give people money, right? And then, you know, in the street or whatever, like here you go, you know, and then I would have people say the old adage of you know, they're just going to use that to go get drunk. You know, you're going to just go use that to go get high. And I said, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm sure when Jesus walked the face of the earth and helped this guy see, we don't know what happened to that guy. He maybe saw and never talked about Jesus or
Yeah.
serve God again. Maybe when
Exactly.
Jesus fed the 4,000 and the 5,000,
Yeah.
maybe not all of them followed him after, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he they seen the miracle, but he still did it for them.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I always think about that. Like, I don't really care what they do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I hope that I help them out. I hope they go grab a meal. But the bottom line is, Jesus knew what we were going to do with everything he's given us. And all the time we did the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
He's given us, but he still gave it to us, right?
Exactly.
And he still continues to give it to us.
Yes.
So I think, what an inspiration, man, because I think that you do it out of love and you just do it and you want to help them. And wherever, if you can turn their life around, great. But if you can feed them or keep them warm for a night,
yeah,
then great also,
everybody
right?
needs the basic necessities. That's always people's number one question. Like, Paul, you help a lot of homeless people. When you go up to 7-Eleven and somebody's there, like, I want $1, what do we do? And I'm like, whatever God's placed on your heart.
Right.
You want to give them $1, cool. If not, but don't do it with the intentions like they have to buy, like I said, once you hand it to them, it is what it is. Like,
Is what it
we
is.
just got one of our sponsors gets Nikes. So there was like 400 pairs of Nikes that we just gave out at our last event. So there's, Air Force Ones, there's
Right.
Jordans, there's Air Maxes, and people are like, you're going to give this to 400 homeless people? I'm like, dude, whatever I'm blessed, I'm giving the blessing back. Whatever their intent is after that, I don't know. If they
Right.
want to wear them, hustle, I can't control 400 people, but, you do it with God's, intent to bless others, and it is what it is.
Yeah. I think, what a blessing, man. What a blessing. We do one more thing here on the Street Gospel Podcast, man.
Let's do this.
All right, we like to call this the Furious Five, man. The Furious Five, and we ask you 5 furious questions, and they're kind of fun. You know what I mean? So we play a little music.
Okay, I like it.
All right, the Street Gospel Furious Five with Paul Avila, the man behind Pauly's project.
Yes,
Or is Pauly the man behind Pauly's project?
I think both. It's both. So you got the little Pauly, little new tattoo.
Oh, there
right
you
there,
go.
little something,
Sick,
He's
man.
always with me. He's always with me.
You said you were into art,
Yeah.
right? Graffiti in particular. Question number 1 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. Greatest graffiti artist of all time in LA.
Wow. Ooh,
I'll put you on the spot because you know a lot of
Yeah.
them. So do I.
I know. There's a lot of them. Oh wow.
I got 2, and it's tough, but
Yeah. No, that's a killer question because there's just so many in different skill.
you got to pick one.
Oh man, I gotta go with the OG because I grew up seeing all this stuff in Melrose and going to his shop and all this.
I already know.
Yeah, you already know.
Yeah.
I'll give it to Hex, but God, I could have picked 10 of them, but yeah, he's kind of top on my list.
Hex is up there.
Yeah.
For me, it's skill.
Oh yeah,
Skill, he's going to come in the podcast one day, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I already talked to him. John
Nice.
knows. He's going to be on the podcast, but
yes sir.
but it's a connection, right?
Yeah.
I love Slick too. Slick's up there
yes.
too. I mean, amazing. There's a lot of dudes out there. Deffer is one of my favorite, but straight graffiti, and still gets down.
Yeah. Well, he was like,
Skill.
yeah, he was like crazy vandal, but did his
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right? And
Well, it's funny because today, as a matter of fact, he posted and he put, this was for Paul. They did a mural, Hex and Skill, Pauly's Project mural in Skid Row a long time ago. And he just posted that today. And
I didn't
he's
even
like,
see it.
Yeah,
Gotta
yeah.
check it out.
And,
what a coincidence.
yeah.
I didn't even know
and he
that.
gave a mention for King Pauly or something. And I was like, wow, like they did that 7 years ago. Why would he post that?
That's dope.
That's kind of cool. But
He's a great guy. He did
Yeah.
some pieces for us, for my band back in the day. That's how we became friends.
Yeah.
And then, he was in Southgate. I was in Bell. I'd see him up everywhere. So I'd be like,
Yeah,
man.
no,
So when I
he's-
finally met him, I was blown away.
he's a beast. Yeah.
Question number 2 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. Burgers or tacos?
Tacos.
All day?
Pretty much, yes.
What kind of tacos though?
I go with the carnitas, asada, the basic stuff.
Okay.
I'm ridiculous Mexican food junkie. Like people just make fun of me because, like, if I'm with the new group, I'll say, what do you guys want to go eat? And then I'll suggest, we should have Mexican. I haven't had it in a while. And then my cousin will say, dude, you had it last night. Just tell him. I'm like, all right. So I'm obsessed. I was at a taco place today in Gardena. So
I had the taco god on here, so I always ask that question.
Yeah.
That's my boy right there. Question number 3 of the Street Gospel Furious 5. Favorite oldie artist or group?
Ooh. Man, we're giving some tough ones today because there's just so many. Me and Pauly always rock out to the best of the Midnighters.
Okay.
Like the Dells, the Midnighters. I mean, there's so many. But Willie G, he's our good friend too.
Willie G.
Yes, sir.
I know his son, Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob G. Drummer.
Nice. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's friends with really close friends with my cousin Champ. Champ was on the show also. But yeah,
nice.
Small world, dude.
That's a small circle. Yeah.
Right. Question number 4 of the Street Gospel Furious 5. Best donation you ever received to Pauly's project?
Oh man. Geez, that's a tough one. We have a new connection. They're called Coliseum Athletics. They're like the biggest collegiate sportswear, and they just gave us like 17 pallets of brand new hoodies and
wow, 17 pallets.
17 pallets is a lot. I think they said it was like 12,000 pieces of goods. So that was a nice one.
Okay, nice, man.
Mm-hmm.
Question number 5, last one on the Street Gospel Furious 5. You're an old LA guy. Rams or Raiders?
It's crazy. I hope nobody's outside. I want to get stoned. I've never really liked the Raiders. I mean,
okay.
Exit the building.
Podcast is over.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
For people to hate me more, I don't really like Rams or the Raiders. I like the Dolphins. Why?
The Dolphins.
They suck. But my brother brainwashed me. That was his favorite team. And I'm a little brother. He's like, put on the Aqua and, whatever. And I'm like, I always rocked a Miami jersey. And then when I got older, I'm like, I don't really like him. I was kind of forced, but I guess that's been my team growing up. So it's weird. I know.
But see, you're rocking the Raider colors, man. So
that's true. Yeah. People just assume the LA guy with the black.
Bro.
I know.
You know what I mean?
We were right there, and then I just.
It's all right, man.
But Dodgers, Lakers, USC, you roll with those?
I'm UCLA.
Oh man! But this show is going so good. It's going south right now. Glad we have the table.
Listen. UCLA is a public school, man. USC is a private school, but they are in the hood, and I'm sure you've fed a few people around that neighborhood.
Yeah, USC, private
University of South Central.
Children. Yeah, exactly.
All good, man. Anything you want to shout out before we head out of here, bro?
Oh man. Actually, shout out to my bro Jacob, Project Coffee Cup. Just had a little baby.
Yeah,
man.
Jacob's a good dude.
Tito Hood. There's a lot of groups out there doing good things. Tito. All my family, friends, the Pauly's Project team. You guys here for inviting me. Like
for sure, man.
Too many people to thank, but we appreciate anytime we can get our story out there and try to inspire people. But I don't want people to end it like, oh, it's a good warm fuzzy feeling. We heard this amazing story. Continue to support us. We need your help.
Yeah.
Donate, volunteer, follow us at Pauly's Project on Instagram, and get on board.
What? I didn't ask you this. What is the best thing they can donate to Pauly's Project? Is it monetary? Is it socks, toiletries, or is it whatever they can give?
It's pretty much whatever they could give, but we have that link in our bio that has the Amazon wish list.
Okay.
So I put like the main items we need.
It.
So there's hygiene items on there, sleeping bags, blankets, socks, all that good stuff. But if you don't have time to go, jump on the link to it. It has a Venmo, PayPal, Cash App. So yeah, monetary donations are always great, or items. Either one, it helps us.
Got it. Appreciate it, man. We'll put that link on the bottom of this podcast.
Yes, sir. Thanks,
man. That'll conclude this episode of the Street Gospel Podcast with Paul Avila of Pauly's Project. Appreciate you guys out there. Talk to you soon. Peace.